keep throwing out Indian investors, how can you have better relations with India? You can't take antagonistic stand and then say you want to have better relations.
Do you think that the economic trajectory is being sustained by the current government?
The economy is still vulnerable. What is the present government doing? I do not know, because they are not very clear as to what their policies are. And some of the policies seem to have discouraged investors, especially in the renewable energy sector.
You just mentioned about Horuallana. So there's been a lot of talk about recovery of stolen assets. Do you think there are sufficient laws to recover stolen assets, or should new laws be enacted?
Because we didn't have laws, that we had the Proceed of Crimes Act brought in, the new one.
The whole Batalanda Report, attention comes to it after you face this international interview.
And it's mainly, it focuses on the fact that there was uprising by the JVP. So the debate now will be on actually what the JVP has.
In recent years, Sri Lanka faced a turbulent economic crisis and people were faced with severe hardships. There were long fuel queues, power cuts, the list just goes on. It would be right to say that economic stability was achieved after former President Ranil Wickremesinghe assumed office in 2022, and that too within a short period of time. Now, the IMF and economists from the World Bank and other experts have said that the path taken was a path of recovery. So, I will today be in conversation with former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, and we will discuss about the path taken so far and the path ahead. Welcome. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. So, my first question would be on the economy. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, there was an economic growth of 5.2%, and the real GDP grew by 5% that year. Now, these are positive developments, but the IMF says that the economy remains vulnerable and that the reform momentum should be sustained. Do you think that the economic trajectory is being sustained by the current government?
The economy is still vulnerable. What I did was, the economy was in a free fall. So we stopped that, and there's stability at that stage. But then there has to be recovery. It has to go from there, as I mentioned once, till we come to a position where we are able to repay our debts in 2028. That year will not change. It's like, the patient was dying. They were on machines. So we just removed the tubes, and the patient has gone to the ICU, but he is not out of danger in any way. Now, we must have a recovery program. What is the present government doing? I do not know, because they are not very clear as to what their policies are. And some of the policies seem to have discouraged investors, especially in the renewable energy sector.
You did talk about having to pay a lot of debt in 2028. And it's important that not only do we remain stable after that, but that the economy grows. Do you think we have the necessary framework to grow the economy afterwards?
The Economic Transformation Act creates the framework for the economy to grow. Because not only have we got to repay those debts, remember, we are also taking loans, and we have this deficit, a foreign exchange deficit. So those loans will also have to be paid. You have to transform the economy to being an export-oriented economy.
All right, let's focus on some of the foreign investments, projects, and developments during your tenure. What are these projects and developments that significantly impacted Sri Lanka?
It was only in 2024 that people were watching and had some confidence in Sri Lanka. But we had the power projects. I think those together, that includes Adani, the other power projects, would have come to about $3 billion or a little bit more. Then there were other tourist projects. So altogether, we had about $4 billion of projects on the pipeline for this year.
And with regards to the Adani project, So the current president says that they would only proceed with the Adani Group agreement based if it's based on terms favorable to the government. Do you think they would carry forward the agreement?
That won't happen because the Haley's agreement and this agreement, the backgrounds are different. Nowhere have we in the last few years given the same rate for all these big investors who are taking in projects. Early it was small ones. In the case of Haley's, like the other 50 megawatts and other smaller ones, land is provided, the feasibility studies are done, the bird migratory studies are done, infrastructure is there to the last mile. So it's only installing the machinery, putting up the buildings. In this case, you have to buy the land. You have to also basically do all the surveys. Then the cost of money. You take a large amount of funds. Interest rates and others are high because they think Sri Lanka's risk factors are too high. So the differences are there in each case. There are other issues to be taken in mind. You will never have that. What's happening is you are turning down nearly about 800 or 900 million worth of investments. That's why we want the investments and also to get a name as a country which is going to renewable energy. Remember, when you turn down Adani, the other Indian companies won't come in.
All right. And I think now, if you are to focus on this, by the fourth quarter of last year, the CEB made a 3 billion rupees operating loss despite profits recorded in the first 3 quarters of that year. What sort of implications would this have for Sri Lanka?
No, what you have to do is to ensure you adhere to the agreement, the extended fund facility agreement with the IMF. I can't go into the details, but you can't make a loss in the CEB.
Let's talk about the reforms introduced during your tenure, which helps with greater transparency and accountability. I believe there were over 75 laws and amendments to laws which were enacted between 2022 to 2024.
We brought a lot of laws in. Number I haven't counted that, but certainly well in over the 50s. Then we've also the major piece of legislation like the Economic Transformation Act, Public Finance Act, Public Debt Act, also the Central Bank Act. On the side of we also took action on corruption. These are not slogans. We have a very deficient structure. When people say Horu Allano, with this you can't do any Horu Allano, because I got the IMF to do a governance diagnostic survey. It showed basic problems. I mean, for instance, only a lot of the bribery commission staff are seconded. You don't have a permanent. Our laws were backwards. It's all there in the governance diagnostic report, which is in the IMF websites. We started implementing it. So I brought the Proceed of Crime bill to be passed. We had agreed to pass it before end of last year. It has not been done. Then we took action on some. The others had to be followed up. I don't know what has happened in the last 6 months. But these were all the reforms that we brought in.
And when I mean, you just mentioned about Horu Allana. So there's been a lot of talk about recovery of stolen assets. Do you think there are sufficient laws to recover stolen assets, or should new laws be enacted?
Yes, because we didn't have laws, that we had the Proceed of Crimes Act brought in, the new one.
So let's talk about geopolitics a bit. How can Sri Lanka foster better relationships with India going forward?
If you keep throwing out Indian investors, how can you have better relations with India? You can't take an antagonistic stand and then say you want to have better relations. You can't do that.
Sure.
You have to either decide you want good relations and work for it, or otherwise forget about it.
And where do you think Sri Lanka stands right now with India? And then there's also China on the other hand.
Well, where you stand with India, you all know as well as I do, so I don't want to comment on it now. I don't think that you can play India against China. Both sides are there, and you have to realize that India and China are also talking with each other. India and China belong to the BRICS. I mean, they are challenging part of the Western led order. They will have their problems. They may want to sort of compete in the spheres of influence, but certainly they are talking with each other and they'll keep talking. At least once a year, they have to meet at the BRICS meeting, wherever it is. And if
And
they have the Shanghai Cooperation Council organization, again they meet at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So twice a year, the Prime Minister of India and the President of China meets.
And American politics has taken a turn since President Trump assumed office. What implications would this have on global affairs and also for Sri Lanka?
No, he's changing the world order. Well, today you had the Trump tariffs being done.
Yes.
It affects us very badly. So he is trying to change the world order in favor of the US. And whether he'll achieve it, I do not know, but he's certainly trying. So that's going to have an impact on the global relations.
There are also rumors of wars escalating. Some even say that World War III is imminent. How do you see this as someone who's...
We have to be concerned. There are some places where, I mean, basically, one which has come up recently, the case of Iran, Israel bombing Iran is one issue that is there. Well, Taiwan was the issue when President Biden came, but I can't see that now. But at some stage, Taiwan will have to become a part of China if you have to avoid war. They have to. The Chinese will even go to war to get Taiwan back.
I would like to shift attention to the recent international interview you faced. You held a press conference afterwards and said a part of it was edited out. Have you requested for this missing part to be published?
No, they don't do that. They say it's 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
So they took the part that was good for them. So you can imagine what the other part was like.
Was it all good?
Well, if it was good for them, they would have put it.
All right. And
whether it's good for me, not they won't do. No, be good for them. They will. No. I said this because when it was over in Sri Lanka, and some people asked me, I made this statement. That's all.
Also, I do wonder. Now, the whole Batalanda Report, attention comes to it after you face this international interview, and in fact, all parties. Since the Batalanda Report, all parties, including the JVP, was a part of these governments, including in President Chandrika Bandaranaike's government. Yet the report was hardly contested, and it surfaces now after almost 3 decades. How do you see this personally?
They didn't want it taken up then.
Yes.
And most of them haven't read it. Some of them thought it's about me. No, the only reference to me in the finding is that I didn't hand over the houses in the manner they say is the procedure. I disagree with it, but that doesn't matter. It's a small one. And it's mainly, I mean, it focuses on the fact that there was uprising by the JVP. So the debate now will be on actually what the JVP has done.
And is there finally, before we end this conversation, do you have a message for the audience watching this?
Well, we are now in uncertain times, and let's hope there be certainty will prevail and there's a better life forward.
Thank you very much for this conversation. So that was his message. Let's hope certainty prevails. The economy of a country can always be vulnerable, but it's important that we have visionary and intelligent leaders who can turn things around. I know we have emerged out of bankruptcy, but I hope Sri Lanka grows into a prosperous and powerful nation. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll be back with another episode. Until then, stay safe and take care.